Good afternoon. I'm Professor Paul Montz. I'm the Chief Scientific Advisor for the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and I'm joined in conversation this afternoon by Noel. Noel, you're going to have to help me, Noel. You're going to have to help me with how to pronounce your second name.
N'guessan.
Noel, tell us a bit about yourself.
All right, so I'm Nöel N'guessan. I'm an engineer by training, but I'm also the co-founder of a company called Lono that's based in Côte d'Ivoire, and that tries to bring simple engineering solutions to the massive problem of organic waste that we have here. Problem for now, but opportunity as solutions are brought to the table. So that's what we do. And that's what we won the award for.
Absolutely. Well, we'll explore that in this conversation today. I mean, a hugely exciting area. Waste management is going to be such an important feature of our future society, particularly sustainable development, but also sustainability as we move to the goals around net zero. So what problem was your work and research trying to address?
So in the specific case of Côte d'Ivoire, we were a big agricultural country. For just this one country of 25 million people, we produce 40% of the cacao for chocolate produced globally. We're also number one exporter of cashew nuts. We're number one African exporter of things like mangoes and dessert bananas. So there's agriculture everywhere. So as a side thing, there's also a lot of organic waste everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if you look at the ratios, for about 75% of the material harvested from those trees is thrown away as waste. Only 25% ends up as sold product. So this is the problem that we try to solve, because ultimately it's the poverty problem that we want to solve, but we use this opportunity as a way to solve that, because the waste is already available and it's in massive quantities. We're talking 30 million tons of waste every year just from agricultural activity.
That's a huge amount of it's mainly organic waste that you're dealing with on the whole.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that organic waste?
So we focus mainly on composting and anaerobic digestion. So in both cases, it's the biofertilizer product that we're most interested in. But in the anaerobic digestion, you also get the biogas, which is useful for clean cooking. So we try to optimize these fermentation processes that are relatively, they're natural, they already happen in nature, but try to optimize them in very simple plug-and-play solutions that can be workable in a rural environment.
Yeah, because that's always a challenge, actually. Somebody was telling me about anaerobic digestion the other day, that it seems quite simple, i.e. you put waste in a big tube, you add a bit of kind of starter culture, if you will, and off you go. But there's a real know-how that you need to get anaerobic digestion to work properly. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely, especially if you want it to work for a long time. Because when you start, it always works, always. Yeah. But when you want it to keep working for years, that's when you need some know-how, especially when you really count on the biogas for something useful. So in this case, our promise in our solution is that the households can cook for 4 to 6 hours per day with the gas. Mm-hmm. So having gas is not enough. It needs to be enough. You need to have the quantities that you promised. So that's where the know-how is very important. But at the same time, it must be very simple to transfer this know-how to the farmers.
Yeah.
So that's really what we've been working on, to really simplify the whole thing, but still get the result.
Yeah. On what scale does a single farmer do this on? I mean, are you doing it on a farm-by-farm basis or on a cooperative basis?
Yeah, on a farmer basis. So a single farmer has two options, like what we would propose to them. Yeah. There's two options. If they're going for composting, in the case of a cocoa farmer, for example, every year they would have about 15 tons of waste to compost.
Right.
So for that, we do focus a bit more on accelerators, like compost accelerators, that are much faster and simpler alternative to what they're told to do, which is digging a big hole, put your 15 tons in there, add some manure, close it, and every now and then come mix it, which the farmers do after 2 months, and they give up and they say it's too difficult. So we then propose accelerators where all they have to do is spray the pile of waste which they already have, cover it, then the accelerators do the rest, also microgrid. And then at the household level, where the biogas can be useful, then there are about 2 cubic meter solutions that the farmer has to feed with about all the household. They don't even have to be a farming household. The household has to feed with 10 to 15 kilos of waste, and then they get 4 to 6 hours of cooking plus the liquid fertilizer that they can also use or sell.
Right.
And the whole idea that it's a productive tool, not just, you have to protect the environment, sure, but this needs to be bankable, otherwise the scalability is always limited, and that's.
So I guess there's a picture kind of forming in my mind a little bit now around this, because when I think about anaerobic digesters, I think about kind of huge cylinders, farmer waste scale in the UK. But actually, what you're talking about, and the scale is actually much smaller but much more reliable. That adds value to what is probably a smaller farmer community, a smaller scale of farming. Is that the correct picture?
Yeah, exactly. We do have the scale that a community can
right.
Well, that can treat the waste of a group of farmers, but the 2 cubic meters is basically for a single household. Right. And there's been other types of domestic sized digesters like plug and play, but the stability is always the problem, and the low cost. It must be cheap to reach the rural farmers and be very stable, because these rural areas have bad roads. Like the cost of going there, if anything goes wrong, is so high that it needs to be very reliable. That's what.
So I'm actually intrigued, without giving any trade secrets away, obviously, about how do you keep it simple? Because it seems to me that what you're saying is, yes, there's lots of commercial solutions around, but actually they don't work really on the scale here that makes it a sense for an individual farmer or smallholder or whatever it is. And actually that key of keeping it simple and actually technologically simple is actually quite important. So how do you do that?
Number one is the choice of material. So the choice of material that's sufficiently robust for a tropical environment.
Okay.
For the tropical environment. And secondly, the internal design of the digester needs to handle changing feedstock, because you have seasons. The farmers have different wastes at different times, and you need a digester that protects the bacteria that you rely on. If you have a digester where there's not that protection, you can have periods where the digester, maybe the farmer changes waste or stops feeding it or feeds it too much, and that kills the bacteria, and then the whole thing doesn't work anymore. And then you have a problem, because just explaining over the phone to a farmer how to fix that,
it's hard. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's intriguing. Well, Nöel, can you tell us a bit about yourself? What kind of took you to do this? What took you from? You're a qualified engineer, I believe. What kind of drove you into this sort of issues, and what motivates you to be doing this?
During my university years, first I spent some years in Southern Africa. So my family worked for an international company that took them in Southern Africa. That's why I speak English. And during those years, I got to see different models of, let's say, African societies that operate differently to Cote d'Ivoire. So that was already, for me, something interesting that I already at that age thought, okay, we could do this like this in Cote d'Ivoire as well, why not? And then during university, then it took a bit more of a serious turn in my head, more on poverty, because there was a wave of independence, post-colonialism, and some countries went faster than others. Some regions of the world went faster than others. So I was always intrigued of what went wrong with some parts of the world, Sub-Saharan Africa, and what can I do maybe to fill whatever gap I find. And one of the gaps was that agriculture doesn't reward the farmer.
Yeah.
The farmer works, produces the stuff. We all know, we use it, we eat chocolate, we drink coffee. But they're still poor. So then that's what drove me ultimately. And once I saw that they do produce this raw material for which there's more and more mature technologies, maybe not adapted yet to that kind of scale or that environment, or there's no business model for that profile of farmer, but the technology exists. So then I specialized on how can I bring it to those farmers. and then Lono was born as a company. I mean, on the field, we did learn a lot of things that make sense to someone like myself. But once you get on the field, you realize it's not really how it works.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot of things and then adapted it. And now we really got a workable solution that we're trying to scale.
So, I mean, you started out from that story, you started out as an engineer and you've sort of ended up as an engineer and entrepreneur. Yeah. How do you find that balance between the two?
It's really two different jobs. I mean, an entrepreneur is a job in itself. That's something I learned. I do miss being able to do more engineering. So that's definitely in our growth strategy. I do want to fall back to being an engineer because that's what I like and I think I add the most value. But it's nice because it does allow you to let's say set your own pace on what you work on actually is useful to people. I mean, I'm not saying that what I would do in a normal company where I was maybe improving the process to make soap, that is useful to people as well, for sure. But you know, it's quite different when you're directly impacting someone in their daily life.
So you won a prize for this, didn't you? I understand that you won a prize for innovation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it was the Africa Prize from the Royal Academy of Engineering. And that's a prize I had seen in the news a couple of years back. And I always thought, this prize sounds great. So I read into it and it also looked great when you read into it. And I thought, okay, I would love to win this prize because what we do, well, first of all, in the entrepreneurial world of startups, if I can call it that, technology tends to be very complex digital solutions, and that's even accelerating because now we're entering even digital dimensions and everything. So what we do is very much marginalized, at least here. So you always sometimes wonder, is it even innovation? Is it even engineering? Because before starting this company, I was working on much more advanced technologies. But I thought, okay, let me apply for this, for the engineering, let's say, aspect of it. And also because one challenge we had, or we still have working on, is to bring the cost of the solution down. And for that, engineering will definitely play a key role. So that's why we applied. And then during the program, we learned there was much more that you get out of it because of the short lists. 16 companies, if I remember right. You get this one-on-one expert sessions, which you can really pick the expertise you need at the time for your company and get sessions that are just for you. This is quite different because I've been in other programs where you get these sessions where all the companies have to attend, whether you have that problem or not. And I mean, everybody is busy, including us. So then it was difficult to sit somewhere where, I don't have that problem. So, but this was perfect. And we really got to focus on what we needed. And that I think was the most useful part because we really got some help and it forces you to get your head out the water and think, and hear some advice. And that was good.
So it was bespoke mentoring then and expertise, or at least focused in different areas that you could think, I need that for my company or my idea. So it allowed you to advance that rather than some sort of generic scheme, I guess.
Exactly. And also maybe some ideas that you've been thinking about for a while, and then you get to hear a third party completely objective who just heard about this. You hear their opinion and it can motivate you to take action. Because you can get confirmation or the opposite, but confirmation is also useful.
So has winning the Africa Prize made a difference to your company?
Yes. So
beyond what you've just described in the sense of in the wider sense.
Now the trust factor, because we're a small company, the engineering kind of hardware innovations, people tend to look more to, let's say, industrialized countries for that. So we don't get a lot of love, but the innovation prize definitely helped build that trust factor that, okay, well, probably have something. Let's look closely. Or with parties that we're working on already, you can accelerate because it's a bit more leverage. And then investor also. We got into some talks with investors that believe in the innovation and believe in the entrepreneurs behind it, because I don't do this alone. I have a team of 11 people and a co-founder. So that was nice.
How long, just out of interest, has it taken you to build up to 11 people? So how long ago did you start this?
2017.
2017, so about 5 years.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 5 years a couple of weeks ago.
That's wonderful. Just to kind of give people a flavour for how long it takes to drive this innovation forward. So what do you hope the impact of this work and the research and what you've done so far will be in the longer term?
Definitely, I hope and I believe also that innovation can affect millions of farmers, because that profile of farmer that for whom farming is their activity, they don't do anything else. That's how they make a living. Just in Cote d'Ivoire, there's 2 million. And if you scale that to West Africa, the numbers climb to 5-6 million.
Yeah.
And they all have at least 50% of what they sell as waste. Whether it's the shell, it's the there's always parts of the product that they throw away. So for them, there's always a solution to make more income from a raw material that they have available for free. So that's who we want to touch, and most of them are either right below the poverty line or right above. So what we want is to push them further away from the poverty line, because the data has shown that just a few more dollars a day completely changes the life of the family and the generations after. So that's the impact we want. And then naturally, because we're dealing with waste, there will be positive environment effects as well.
Yeah, it's a sort of win-win all around, really, isn't it? It helps people out, on low incomes, and yet drives sustainability and better use of our natural resources all around. But does it by using kind of engineering that is practical and people-focused, and made sure, in some senses, as low tech as possible, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to finally kind of think a little bit about the international context on this, we talked a little bit about the Africa prize, which was clearly an international prize. What role has the international partnerships played in this, and how can international R&D help you in this area?
So far, the international support has been very positive, in the sense that, unfortunately, locally there's not much budget for environmental focused solutions. Mm-hmm. At least that don't make, that aren't already proven to be profitable. So most of our funding for trials and demonstrations and trainings of farmers came from international agencies. So that's quite major. Mm-hmm. And as we do more and more of these, we can go higher up in the level of okay, so this is demonstration, now it's commercial and so on, and then you get local parties more interested. So that's been very useful. And then on the R&D side, one thing that is a bit paradoxical is that to be low tech and very productive, you first need to be high tech. Right? You need some high tech tools to get there.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we don't necessarily have here, which is a bit where we are stuck in some things where we now know what to do to bring it, to make it a little bit simpler and cheaper, but the prototyping cannot be done here. You need, so that is what we're working on.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that you pull out, that last one there. It would be wrong to think of this as low-tech innovation. It's high-tech innovation that is delivered through low-tech solutions, and actually there's a real difference in there that's really worth pulling out. And the point that you're making there is in order for a country that you're living in, you're relying on international partnerships to help you with the high-tech innovation that you're going to need to drive these products and ideas forward. This is quite an important distinction to kind of pull out in this conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's it, and it's I guess it's the reason why digital solutions can go further, because they have that barrier a bit less. That's one thing we hope to solve, like in our expansion plan. We understand we need an ecosystem. For now, we rely internationally, but international parties, if the scale is big enough, can relocate partly here, and then it's really win-win because we do have common goals.
Yeah. So one final question from me. I mean, the company that you set up from this is Kubeco, if I pronounced it correctly. So where do you hope that Kubeco will be in another 5 years' time on this journey?
So in 5 years' time, we want to be now firmly settled on the whole continent and moving out to other parts of the world that have similar problems or challenges. Because we now have the working product and we made it sufficiently simple and affordable that we know scaling can be rather fast. So that's a big goal for this year, is to really have massive scaling this year and next year. We already have customers outside of Cote d'Ivoire, so I'll be in Ghana next week, for example. And so in the coming 5 years, we want to be in Mexico, where we have parties interested, but we're unable really to respond. Mm-hmm. And I would say also in Europe as well, where there's no waste problem.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I think that kind of global vision drawing out of this is really worth it. Thank you very much, Nöel, for talking to me today. Congratulations on winning again the Africa Prize, which I believe is the biggest prize dedicated to engineering innovation in there. It's been really interesting to talk to you about your engineering journey and your company's journey in putting this together and taking kind of technology and that divide between high tech and low tech that you need to drive this out to practical solutions that allows people to be relieved from poverty, at the same time create sustainable products as well. So, a kind of a win-win all around, and a very positive message. So thank you very much for spending your time talking to us today, and all the best for the future, and good luck with the company and the ideas that you're developing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul.